Hi, happy Soils Week. I'm Maureen Angle. I'm a master gardener from Amador County here in California, and I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite subjects related to healthy soils, and that's the importance of growing a cover crop in your garden. Not everybody has garden crops growing all year long, but you don't want to leave your garden bare. It's important that you have something growing in the ground or your container or raised beds at all times of the year. So one of the things that's fun and easy to do is to plant a cover crop, especially during the fall. And I have one planted here. This one's doing pretty well this year, although it's got a lot of weeds in it too. But I planted this a couple months ago. It's considered a soil builder mix. I brought along some of the seeds to show too. What I have planted in here, aside from the weeds that grew on their own, is I have some fava beans, some peas, 2 different kinds of vetch, and some oats as a grass. And it's intended to help create the microbes in the soil at the roots and give nutrition to the soil. Some of our beds got pretty well washed out with all those atmospheric rivers last year. And when we started planting in here, we found that the soil didn't hold water well, water didn't percolate well. It didn't have a feel or good look to it as far as organic nutrition. So I started off planting a warm weather cover crop in this during the summer. And it was just kind of okay. It's pretty hot up here, and the plants that I had chosen actually didn't do well, but a few of them came back in the fall. So it wasn't all a loss, and it was a good learning experience, and it did put roots in the ground. So I switched to what is meant for a fall planting crop. It's cold resistant, since I've got it in the ground before and it's started to grow before it freezes up here. It should be okay. One of my farmer friends advised, if it snows up here, I might want to come up and put a little bit of freeze cloth on it. But other than that, all I have is protection from the birds and our friendly kitty cat that visits the garden often. If you're going to plant a cover crop, it's important that what it does, it's meant to cover the ground when you don't have garden crops, but you also need to protect your cover crop until it gets going. The birds in the area absolutely love the new green plants in there. So when I plant mine, I always cover it the same day I put it in the ground. I'd swear the birds watch me and go after my seeds as soon as I go in the house. So I typically use some kind of fencing that I just kind of hoop over my beds. I plant in raised beds and containers at my house. And then I always put, I'm not after pollinators in this garden. I'm after protection. And so I always put some kind of insect barrier as well as a bird barrier up. And I leave it up pretty much of the time most of the time the crop is growing. Sometimes I get crazy though, and once it comes up out of the fencing material, I take this off and the birds can go to town on it because I'm really after the roots. The roots in a cover crop will help encourage bacteria to grow that will provide nutrients for your plants. One key I didn't know first time I planted a cover crop is most of these seeds are beans and seeds, legumes. They need a little bit of a kickstart. So you end up buying a powder that's called an inoculant. You mix it with water, make a little slurry, soak your seeds in it, and then you can broadcast or plant any way you like, but you do want to get some coverage. Let's see. I enjoy doing the cover crops. One thing, it seems silly, but in the winter, if you're not into a winter garden, people do want to look at your garden and see what's going on. And I love it. When I plant a cover crop, I've got raised beds full of green plants that flower. It looks great with very little effort. In fact, if it rains, I rarely have to water them at all. Now, one important thing at the end, you plant them maybe in the fall, you let them grow into the first part of spring, and then 3 to 6 weeks before you're going to be planting your spring or summer crop, you actually chop all these down. You don't want them to flower. If they start to flower, I've got some flowering in here from some of my repeaters, but that's okay. But you don't want the bulk of the crop to flower because that takes away from the nutrition in the roots. So as soon as you see things starting to flower, this part's fun too, you go in and you chop the whole thing down, chop it up. I usually use my weed eater to do that. And then you can work it into the soil just a tiny bit, but 3 to 6 weeks later, you can plant your spring or summer crop right into it. Is that good?